Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial number 41 in a series of video tutorials for Java programming. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload on my channel. In the last tutorial I discussed about deadlocks and enums. So if you're interested and if you want to learn more about the deadlocks and enums, then you can go and watch tutorial number 40. So in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about type wrappers and autoboxing. So first of all, I'm going to talk about a few important concepts about enums. Okay. Then after that, we'll be starting with the concept of type wrappers. So these are the certain things, which you need to remember about enums. All right. So enum declaration that can be done either inside a class or outside a class. All right. So you can either declare a enum inside a class or outside a class. Then the second thing which you need to remember is that you need to declare constants first. So whenever you're declaring an enum inside that particular block, first of all you need to declare the constants. Okay, if you don't declare the constant, actually it will give an error, because after declaring the constants, okay, and separating the different constants by commas, then you need to put semicolon. Okay, you need to tell the compiler or the Java program that this is the end of the constants which I am defining. Then after that you can define as many methods as you want. Okay, you can define the constructor, you can define the methods, etc. Okay, in a class or in an interface it doesn't matter. Obviously in a class you can declare the constructor first, then after that if you want you can declare a variable, then after that you can declare a method. Okay, or you can declare variable first, then after that you can declare a method or a constructor. The order doesn't matter for a class, but however in a enum the order matters a lot. All right, first of all you need to declare the constants, and after that you need to separate the different constants. If there is more than one constant, you need to separate them by using commas. And at the end, when you reach to the end of the constants, you need to put semicolon. After that you can define the constructor or the method. All right, then the second the third thing which you need to remember is that the constants which you are declaring inside an enum, it is a kind of an object of an enum. Okay, and one additional thing which I like to add about the first point is that if you are declaring a enum inside a class, you can mark that particular inner enum as either private or protected. But however, if you are declaring a enum outside a class, then that enum has to be public always. Okay, so if you are declaring it inside a class, then it can be made as private, it can be public, or it can be made protected as well. But however, if you're declaring it outside a class, then it has to be public. All right, then another thing, and very interesting thing about enums is that you can define a main method inside a enum. Okay, it does not mean that a main method can only be defined in a class. No, main method can be defined in a enum as well. All right, so these are very interesting things. After that, the enum can implement many interfaces. Okay, so obviously an interface can extend another interface. A class can also extend more than one interface. In much the same manner, a enum can implement many interface. Okay, and enum, it can contain concrete and abstract methods. Okay, so as I said earlier, abstract methods are always defined in an abstract class. So abstract methods can be defined in a enum. Okay, and the enum can contain concrete methods as well. Okay, so there are certain rules which we need to follow in a enum. Okay, so we cannot declare a enum as abstract. No, but however we should always declare a class as abstract. Okay, if you want to define abstract method. So there are certain differences for declaring an abstract method. So we will look into all these when I use the IDE. And another thing which you need to keep in mind is that enum constructors are private. and that is the reason why you cannot instantiate a enum. Okay, you cannot instantiate a enum because enum constructors are private in nature. Private means you cannot access it from outside the enum, right? So that means you cannot, instantiate a enum by using the new keyword. Okay, so these are the certain points about the enums. Okay, then after this, I'm going to talk about the concept of type wrappers. So there are 8 type wrappers in Java. Now, if you remember, these, if you look at these 8 points, okay, you will remember something. Okay, these are actually the primitive types. Okay, if I talk about character, boolean, byte, short, integer, long, float, double. However, please keep in mind that if you look at the first character of all these points, you know each and every character is capitalized in nature. The reason is because I am talking about the class. Okay, this character, it is a class in Java. This boolean, it is a class in Java. Byte, it is a class in Java. In much the same manner, short, integer, long, float, double, all 8 of these are defined as a class in Java programming language. Okay, so now let's get started and let us see what exactly a type wrapper is. Okay, so character. Okay, as I said earlier, character is a class which is defined in the programming Java programming language, and it is a wrapper for char. Okay, if you remember char, it is the primitive data type which I discussed a long time ago. All right, so it is a wrapper for the char data type, and it has this particular class. It has a constructor, okay, which is named as character. Obviously, okay, the class name has to be same as the constructor name. Okay, or I should say the constructor name should be same as the character name of the class, and it accepts a parameter, okay, which is of char, and this particular char, it is wrapped in this character. So then after that, if you want to extract this particular character from this class, then you can use this particular method char value. Okay, this particular method, it is going to return the wrapped character. Okay, so now one thing you might wonder, that what is the difference between the primitive data type and this type wrappers. Okay, one thing you need to keep in mind is that as I've said a lot of times in previous tutorials, okay, the class always inherits from any class you define in Java. Okay, whether if I'm talking about this character class, or whether I'm talking about integer, or whether I'm talking about float or double, or I should say all these 8 classes, okay, they are going to inherit from the object class. Okay, because object, it is the base class of all the classes which are defined in the Java programming language. Okay, so all the methods, okay, whichever is defined in object, it is going to be accessible in these classes also, obviously, because of inheritance, right? So because of this reason, you can create object of this particular class. You can create object of character using this particular constructor. Okay, character ch, it is equals to new character. Then inside parenthesis, you need to write a particular character, like let us say a, inside a single quote, because I'm talking about a character here. Then using that particular object, I can do whatever I want. Okay, because it is wrapped inside a class. Okay, it gets some additional features. Okay, so that is why. And one another thing, why we use this type wrappers is that if you are trying to pass a reference to a particular method, then you can always pass a reference to a particular method only if it is an object. Okay, it cannot be done with a primitive type. A primitive type can never be passed by reference to a method. Okay, so that is the reason why we use this type wrappers. Okay, so now that we have understood why exactly we need this type wrappers. Okay, so I should the other name of type wrappers can be primitive data type wrappers, because all these classes, they are wrapping the primitive data types. Okay, Then after that we have this boolean class. So this boolean class, again you need to see that the C is capitalized here. Okay, so C is capitalized because it is the name of a class, and it is a wrapper for char. In much the same manner, B is capitalized here, okay, and this particular class, it is a wrapper for boolean, okay, and obviously you can see here right here that B, here the B is small and here the B is capitalized, okay, so that's how the compiler knows that this boolean, it is different from this boolean. Because remember, I told you in the second or third tutorial itself that Java is case sensitive, and it is, I cannot stress this enough. Okay, many people, what they do, many students are novice programmers, what they may do, they might, define it in a lower case, and they can try to access it in upper case, and then the Java program, it is going to throw an error, and then they will be wondering why the program is throwing an error. Okay, I cannot stress this enough. Java is case sensitive, so please keep that in mind. Then after that we have these two constructors. Okay, first constructor is accepting a boolean parameter, and the second constructor, it is accepting a string as a parameter. Okay, so here if I write a boolean true, okay, and if I try to use this particular method boolean value, okay, this particular third point, this particular method, it is similar to this particular method only. Okay, here it is going to return wrapped character, here it is going to return the wrapped boolean value. Okay, so here if I define, if I am writing if I'm creating object of this boolean class by writing boolean b equals to new boolean true, then after that if I write b dot boolean value, okay, system dot out dot print ln b dot boolean value, it is going to print true. Okay, and if I write false here, then it is going to return this boolean value, it is going to return false. And in much the same manner, here I need to write, okay, in double quotes, if I write true, then this particular boolean value, it is going to return true, and here if I write in double quotes false, it is going to return false. And remember one thing, okay, this particular constructor, it can accept only two strings, only it can accept true or false. Okay, it cannot accept anything else. Okay, so we will definitely look in the IDE. Okay, whenever I'm going to use the IDE, I'm going to show you what happens if you try to use anything apart from true and false. All right, so now I'm going to talk about the byte class. So this byte class, it is a wrapper for byte. Okay, again here the b is capitalized, okay, and here the b is of a lowercase character, and this is a wrapper for this particular primitive data type. And now this class is slightly different from the boolean class and the character class. Okay, here the constructors are deprecated. Okay, you can try to use the constructor, but the constructors are deprecated means it is obsolete, it is no longer in use. Okay, so that is the meaning of deprecated. So because of this reason, what we can do is we can create recreate the object of byte class simply by using this statement, byte b equals to byte 24. And one thing you need to remember is that you need to mandatorily write this byte here, okay, in brackets. Okay, otherwise it is not going to work. The reason why you need to mandatorily write this is because this 24, it is an integer. Okay, this 24 is an integer, so you cannot convert an integer to java.lang.byte. Okay, so you need to first of all convert this to a byte. Okay, so that is how Java programming language works. Okay, I will show you all those things when I use the IDE. Okay, so don't worry about that right now. And then after that we have this method, okay, which is going to return the wrapped byte value. Okay, so here if I'm writing 24, if I'm storing 24 into this particular byte object, then if I write b dot byte value, it is going to return 24. All right, after that we have the integer class. So integer class, okay, it has a wrapper for int. Okay, here I is capitalized, and integer is the name of the class. It is a wrapper for int, and we have the constructor. These two constructors we have integer int num and integer string str. All right. Now, one thing to remember is that if we are using the second constructor, okay, we need to write the number in double quotes because it is a string. Okay, and one additional thing I would like to add is that you need to write a valid integer inside this string. Okay, otherwise, what will happen if you write in like something like YouTube inside double quotes, then obviously YouTube it cannot be converted to an integer, right? So because of that reason, it is going to throw number format exception. Okay, so you need to keep all those things in mind. And but however, if you're using the first constructor, okay, which is I always recommend the first constructor because it is easy to use the first one. Okay, you can directly write integer I equals to new integer 25, let us say. Okay, you can directly use the first constructor very easily. And as is so told you, in this slide itself, if I write 24, if I write 25, okay, the Java compiler or the Java program, it is going to assume that it is a int, it is of int data type. Okay, so you can use this constructor instead. And if you want to extract the value, okay, which is stored in this particular object of the integer class, then you can use this particular method int value. Okay, so if I'm writing, let us say, integer I equals new integer 25, then if I write I dot int value, then it is going to return 25. All right. After that, we have short class. Okay. Again, short is a wrapper for short. S is capitalized. Okay. So here also the constructor is deprecated, and we are going to create the object by using this particular statement. S is capitalized here, short, because we are creating the object of this class. Short, yes, it is equal to short 24. Now, once again, I will like to remind you that you need to, this is mandatory. Okay, this particular bracket is mandatory, and you need to mandatorily write short inside this. If you don't do this, then the compiler it is going to throw a runtime error. Okay, because this 24 it is a int data type, and this int data type it cannot be converted into short. Okay, and if you want to extract this 24 from object of the short class, then you can do that by writing s dot short value. Okay, because all these methods which we have been discussing till now, like short value, int value, byte value, boolean value, char value, okay, all these methods are non-static in nature. Okay, if it is non-static in nature, then definitely we need to have the object of that particular class, right? Otherwise we cannot call this particular method. In much the same manner, we have the long class. Okay, so this long class L is capitalized. Okay, and this particular class it is a wrapper for this long. Okay, this long it is this L is lowercase. Okay, and this long class also has deprecated constructors. Okay, so what is the way to create the object? Okay, and assign the value long L equals 24L. Now, one additional thing which I like to add here is you need to mandatorily write L here, because 24 by default it is an integer. Okay, and you cannot convert the integer to long. Okay, and then now don't get confused with, like, what I said in the previous tutorials. In the previous tutorials, I told you that you can convert int to long. Okay, but here you cannot convert int to the object of this class. Here we are trying to create the object of this class, right? We are not trying to convert from one primitive type to another primitive type. Okay, here we are trying to convert this particular value. We are trying to store this value into the object of this class. Okay, so that thing is completely different from what we are discussing right now. we can definitely, if you are trying to do type conversion between primitive types, okay, then definitely we can store an integer value in a long primitive data type, I'm saying. Okay, that is perfectly allowed and Java is not going to complain. But however, if I'm trying to store this particular value inside the object of this class, then you need to mandatorily append 24L. Okay, and if you want to extract this value from this object, then you need to write L dot long value. Okay, and this method also, obviously, it is non-static in nature. It goes without saying, right? Then after that, we have this float class. So this float class, again, it is a wrapper for float. F is a lowercase character. Okay, the constructors are deprecated again in much the same manner. Now, if I'm trying to store the value of pi, okay, like we have 3.1415, then after that, here you need to mandatorily append f. Okay, because f means it becomes a float value, if you remember. Otherwise, if you don't append this f, okay, it is double by default. Okay, so if I append this f, then this particular value, it gets stored in this object of this particular class. Okay, and if I want to extract this value, then I can do that by using f dot float value. All right, then after that we have the double class. Double class is nothing but it is a wrapper for double. Obviously, note the capitalization, because that is extremely important. If I'm talking about this lowercase double, then it is a primitive data type. If I'm talking about this capital D, then this is a class. Okay, so don't get confused. Then after that we have the deprecated constructor. Okay, this particular class also has a deprecated constructor. Okay, then if you want to store the value, we can do that by using this particular statement, double d equals to 3.1415d. So this is the value of pi. After pi, I'm appending d. Now one thing to remember is that actually this thing will work even if you don't write d. Okay, because if define a if you define a decimal, okay, in Java, it is double by default. Okay, so you don't need to necessarily append a d over here. Okay, then after that, if you want to extract this particular value from the object of this particular class, then you need to use this method. Okay, you need to use d dot double value. All right, so these were, the type wrappers in the Java programming language. Now there are, very small concepts, like we have the concept of boxing and we have the concept of unboxing in Java. Okay, so let me talk about these. Okay, so what is the concept of boxing? Boxing is nothing but, whenever we are trying to wrap a value in an object of, type wrapper. All right, like for example, here I'm creating the object of integer class and I'm trying to store 100 inside the object of this class, then this becomes boxing. Okay, so I'm trying to store 100 inside the object of this class, so this is boxing. After that, we have unboxing. Unboxing means if I want to extract the value from object or a wrapper. Okay, like for example, here I'm doing int I equals to iobj dot int value. Okay, so this iobj, this iobj, it is the object of this integer class, and I want to extract the primitive integer. Okay, this int, it is a primitive data type. I want to extract the value from this particular object, then I'm going to use unboxing and I'm going to use this particular method. Okay, so these were all the concepts, like we have studied about boxing, we studied about unboxing, and we studied about all the primitive data types. It's not a primitive, we studied about the type wrappers for the primitive data types. And the very first slide was about some interesting concepts about enums. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to take you to the IDE, and I will be discussing about the certain concepts which we have discussed in the previous 2 or 3 tutorials, so that these concepts will be more clear to you. So if you have any kind of questions or if you have any kind of doubts, then don't forget to post in the comment section below, and I will get back to you when I can. And if you liked this particular tutorial, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next tutorial. So till then, bye.